Entering my junior season, expectations were incredibly high. I was tasked with bringing the best ever football team to Louisville. The best finish we ever had was as the number 6 team in the nation in 2004 with an 11-1 record. As I entered a new stage of my career as a veteran to the freshmen and sophomores entering the team, my leadership had significantly improved over the summer. I was working out with incoming freshman receivers and I was doing one-on-ones with my backup quarterbacks. I used to care a lot about individual stats and accolades, but now I believe that making the right play and bringing a great team atmosphere equates to winning, and winning will cure literally anything. And we got a little taste of success last season, and now we want the whole load. In our game against Notre Dame, I would show my versatility as both an elite Lamar Jackson-like runner and as an okay, passable Lamar Jackson-esque passer. I mean, seriously, just kidding. Lamar's passing gets slept on. As a matter of fact, though, as a Louisville alum, Lamar did work with me in the offseason on a few things. And no, it wasn't just sprints. Lamar taught me how to make throws when you have the worst receivers in the league. Basically, if you notice that the defense is playing man coverage, you just look down the field and then 2 seconds later, you just run it yourself. Fuck them receivers. Imagine thinking Odell is going to fix that team. Anyways, I got off topic, and I don't have bad receivers. Chris Bell and Amari are actually really good, and they took another step towards making the NFL this offseason for sure. And I couldn't forget Jawar Jordan. I was super happy he decided to return for his senior year. He is one of the fastest running backs in college football this year, and he is a pretty good power back too. Getting back to the game though, despite playing incredibly well on offense, we still only had 17 points, and we were down a score to Notre Dame. I took a deep shot and almost got picked off, but I didn't let that throw me off like it used to. I hit Amari on a slant to pick up the 3rd down on the next play, but he limped off the field. And then I told coach that we needed to go for it on 4th down later in the drive, or Notre Dame might put the game out of reach. And we got down to the 3-yard line, and we ran a really smart speed option to the right and got in for the touchdown. Coach told me that Amari was out the rest of the game, and he was likely going to miss about half of the season too. I rallied the team around me after Notre Dame scored another touchdown, and I asked them, who wants to eat a W? So I ran it for 48 yards, getting us back in the red zone. And then on 2nd and goal, Jawar Jordan just barely is not able to get into the end zone, but he's able to walk in for free on 3rd and goal to tie the game again. Somehow Notre Dame ends up turning the ball over on their own side of the field with 20 seconds left, leaving us an opportunity to kick a game-winning field goal, and we end up making it, walking off with a comeback win to start the season. And our second game wouldn't be any easier as we played against our state rivals, Kentucky. If you're still watching at this point in the video, why don't you go ahead and hit the subscribe button. 90% of you are not subscribed to the channel, but every sub is $1 donated to charity until we hit 1,000 subscribers. Anyway, let's get back to the video. With 3 minutes left in the first quarter, I broke away for a rushing touchdown, and then Kentucky ripped off 2 straight touchdown drives to take a 14-7 lead with 3 minutes left in the first half. Kentucky's defensive ends had been doing a really poor job of containing, so I got an easy opportunity to run outside to the right and had plenty of room to run down the field, but I made the horrible mistake of trying to put another move on a defender, and I turned the ball over on a fumble. Luckily, they didn't score, but I was definitely feeling Amari's absence on offense. He took the top off the defense and gave Chris Bell and Rich Crawford plenty of space to work underneath. Of course, without Marshawn Ford, our All-American tight end, on the roster this season, since he went to the NFL, questions came up about who is going to lead this team, and I didn't outright say that it was me because I wanted to show that it was me for my play on the field. Finally, having my ankle healed and my brace removed gave me so much more agility and acceleration. Once again, Kentucky's defensive ends did a poor job of containing, and I scrambled in for another touchdown to give us a 21-14 lead. And once again, what am I doing? I'm running outside of the pocket, finding plenty of room, and this time, I still had not learned my lesson, and I tried to jump over a defender, fumbling the ball before it can go out of bounds, though it was recovered by Kentucky. On the next drive, I threw a really bad interception that almost turned into a pick six. Luckily, he went down out of bounds near our 25-yard line, but they did end up tying the game 21-21. Rich Crawford is another one of those elite freshman receivers on the team. The only thing that's a bummer is that I wouldn't be able to see how good this dude is when he becomes a senior. I mean, I'll be able to watch him, but I won't be able to play on the same team as him. On 3rd and 9, I find an underutilized receiver, Elijah Downing, for another touchdown, and now it's 28-28 with 1:44 left in the 4th quarter, and we're marching down the field slowly, trying to use up all the clock that we possibly can. Jawar Jordan catches this ball on the flat and takes it for a 21-yard pickup, again, using that elite speed to create huge plays. Rich Crawford once again getting open with 1:18 left. And I guess Jawar Jordan was a little bit tired, so Maurice Turner has come in and picked up another 1st down. And at this point, we're just trying to waste clock and eventually kick a game-winning field goal. We do put 3 seconds left on the clock. We kick the field goal. It is going to be good, and we walk away with a close victory against Kentucky, our rival. It has been surprising that we've been able to walk away with wins in 2 very close games, but in our 3rd game of the season, we're playing against an FCS East team, which should be an easy W. In a game like this, with Amari out, Kenny Wiggins and Rich Crawford really wanted to show out and get their stats up. Des Wes Melton, on the other hand, our new starting tight end, has been pretty quiet overall aside from the one big touchdown that he had in the Kentucky game. And again, with that ankle healed up, these runs are so easy to make. And on the very next play, I pull off a Patrick Mahomes-esque pass, throwing it backwards as I'm running past the line of scrimmage, basically turning it into an option play. And we run another option on the very next play. I decided to keep it for myself this time, run it in for an easy touchdown score, giving us a 31-7 lead at the beginning of the fourth quarter. And this game is essentially over. Again, keeping the option for myself. I get great blocks and run it all the way in for another touchdown. And we walk out with the easy W over the FCS East team. I finished with 300 passing yards and 130 rushing yards and 5 total touchdowns. After barely beating Notre Dame and Kentucky and beating an FCS team, we knew we couldn't take any of these teams lightly. We were already the number 9 team in the nation, but we had lost to UCF last season by a touchdown at home. Marshawn Ford, our former superstar tight end, had a bye week and decided to come support the team down in Florida. It was great having him back in the locker room to hype the team up. He wanted revenge for last season, and he mentioned that he wished he could be a part of the team success that we're having this season. Since I was living on my own at this point, I actually got some NIL money coming in. I decided to get a dog. Remember, man, adopt, don't shop. I got a Belgian Malinois named Buddy. He's been taking up a lot of my time, but I've been bringing him to practice too. Coach did get a little pissed when Buddy popped 3 footballs in the last couple of practices, and I can assure you that actually happens pretty regularly. I've also been curious about my future as a football player. Now that we're in the national spotlight a little bit, I've been trying to gauge where I might go in the draft, and if I left after my junior season, what might happen. I was told by a few people in the league circles that right now I'm looking at getting drafted in the 7th round as an athlete versus just a quarterback. They don't see me as a quarterback that can excel in the NFL as a passer, and they think that I should switch to running back or wide receiver. I haven't given it much thought, but based on my athleticism, I think I could play running back, but I don't think I have the route running technique to be a receiver. I talked about it with Marshawn before our game today, and he told me that based on what he's seen in the league so far, I should just go ahead and finish out my senior year. He said that he knows that I have the potential to really increase my draft position as a quarterback if I put together 2 solid years of tape to change the narrative. I didn't need any more motivation to succeed, but what Marshawn said didn't hurt. I've been doubted ever since I started playing football, whether it be my teammates in high school when I was a track athlete or colleges that were willing to recruit me. I've never been for everybody, but that's okay. I just had to know who my people were and who would appreciate what I brought to the table as a leader and as a future professional athlete. I used to ask myself how I could be like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, when instead I should have been asking how I could maximize my abilities to be the best version of myself and whatever that may look like. Here's the thing though, I used to be all about me and what I could do to achieve award-winning status. I mentioned this before, but now it's about the team. If I make everyone around me better, then I'm gonna reap those rewards too. And yeah, it is funny to be talking about award-winning success and making the NFL when I just had 3 interceptions in this game, but I did just have a game-altering touchdown pass, and now with 2 minutes remaining in the game, we're tied 17-17, and we're down at the 1-yard line. On the very next play, on a read option, I keep it for myself, and I take it in for the score to give us a 1-touchdown lead. We got the ball back with about a minute and a half remaining. UCF was not able to score, and so we're just going to give the ball to Jawar Jordan. I don't think Coach trusted me at this point to throw the ball anymore with 3 interceptions already. But with 1:25 left, we do pick up another first down. The game is basically over as UCF burned their last time out, but we run a read option, and I'm able to take it in despite having 2 defenders kind of on my back, and we do end up beating UCF, getting our revenge for last season. We had gotten up to number 8 in the rankings against Rutgers, who was surprisingly also undefeated but unranked. Again, this Louisville program has finished the season inside the top 10 once in program history, and I could feel that our squad at least had the potential to at least match that, if not make it to the college football playoffs this season. Both of my parents had come to Louisville for this game against Rutgers to support me. They told me that they had a special surprise waiting for me after the game, but I was really hoping that they hadn't dropped any money or gotten any gifts for me or anything. I really didn't need anything at this point with the NIL money coming in. Anyways, back to the game. At the start of the second quarter, I found Amari Huggins-Bruce on a slant route that almost got him into the end zone when he fell down right at the 1-yard line. I found him on the very next play running the exact same route for a touchdown to regain the lead 7-3. On the next drive, though, I thought Amari Huggins-Bruce had burnt his man one-on-one on the outside on a straight-up go route, but you'll see that he does a double move on this play for no apparent reason when he has his man burnt and it results in an interception. I'm not going to count that one against myself. Luckily, they didn't score off the turnover and we had a chance to take a 2-score lead with the last drive on the first half. I got loose on a scramble and did something I rarely did. I actually slid, and that is growth right there. On the next play, Chris Bell made an insane Derrick Henry-like play, stiff-arming the defender and taking it for nearly 40 yards, turning a short gain into a huge play. And we were down already in the red zone. We threw a halfback screen to Jawar Jordan, who got tackled immediately, and on 2nd and 12, we ran a play action on the outside, found Chris Bell once again, who got into the end zone for a touchdown, having a huge couple of plays on that last drive of the first half. Rutgers did answer with a touchdown of their own at the start of the third quarter, and Jawar Jordan was just doing his thing, picking up big chunk yards. Again, a huge sleeper in this upcoming draft with his combination of speed and balance. Same drive, I escaped outside of the pocket and fooled the shallow zone defenders into dropping on me with the threat of the run, and I hit Maurice Turner, our backup running back, for the first down pickup. We finished that drive with a field goal and got back on the field in the fourth after Rutgers couldn't answer. Up 7, we drove down the field with some really great routes from Rich Crawford and then a couple of runs by Jawar Jordan. We finished with another field goal to give us a 2-possession lead after Jawar could not pick up the first down on 3rd and 3. Up by 10 points and with 30 seconds remaining, we're basically just running the clock out. I take a knee, and we come out with a huge victory over, again, an undefeated Rutgers team despite the fact that they were not ranked. Our next week, we played against Temple, who was 1-5 at this point in this season. We were ranked number 5 in the nation at this point. If you really want to know what the surprise was that I got from my parents after the game, I'll tell you what it was. My parents had been contacted by a scout from the University of Washington. It turns out the scout from UW was at the Rutgers game, and he had come with my parents to Louisville to see me play. When I met up with my parents, the scout was with them, and he said that they were preparing to offer me a scholarship, a full scholarship at UW if I entered the transfer portal after my junior year. Now, this was kind of shady because I'm not supposed to be getting contacted from other colleges outside of the transfer portal, and I wasn't given any guarantees, but it was definitely something that I had to at least consider. Straight out of high school, I had always planned to go to UW before the altercation between my teammate and I was published in the local news. But Louisville has also always treated me right, and I guess we'll have to wait until this offseason to see what happens. It wasn't time to panic yet, but being the number 5 team in the nation and being down in the second to a 1-5 team had me upset. We couldn't fold under pressure after accomplishing something that had only happened once before in school history just a week ago. Temple was getting crazy pressure though, and we didn't have any offensive line injuries. A younger, more inexperienced version of myself would probably yell at my offensive line, but let me tell you, that is probably the dumbest thing that you could do as a quarterback. Rich Crawford had a big first down pickup, and with 20 seconds left, we were inside the red zone and we're trying to salvage the first half with a field goal to end it, but we missed the field goal attempt before the end of the first half, and we were still down 10-7 in the third quarter. Des Melton made a nice grab, and then guess who? Amari Huggins-Bruce, already back from injury, showed up again when we needed him most. This dude is the definition of clutch for this team, giving us a 14-10 lead. On the next drive, I kept it for myself on the read option and took it past the 50-yard line, and I tried to get a little cute and cut in, but the defender was having absolutely none of it. Later, I found Des Melton again for another big gain off of a great corner route that he ran. Again, an absolutely fantastic route runner, not as athletic as Marshawn Ford, but more of a pure receiver. With a minute left in the first quarter, I scrambled outside the pocket and almost got into the end zone, got down right at the 3-yard line, and another read option play would see me finally squeeze my way into the end zone to give us a bigger lead. Up 21-10 at this point at the end of the third quarter. We had a chance to put this game away. I found Chris Bell for a huge gain down the field for about 25 yards. Coach started to get extremely conservative with play calls, which hurt us. We were running short yardage plays, trying to burn clock way too early in the fourth quarter. On 3rd and 8, we ran a halfback draw, and credit to Jawar Jordan, who picked up a couple of yards, but we still went absolutely nowhere, and Temple scored a touchdown and converted for 2, so we were only up by 3 points, and it was 3rd and 4th with 2 minutes and 40 seconds left, and luckily Jawar Jordan converted for the first down off of the halfback screen. And did I just say that we were playing too conservative? Well, we also didn't want to be too aggressive, and I threw an awful pick on a, let's be honest, a very sloppy comeback route. Ultimately, though, the pick was my fault, and Temple scored a touchdown off of it, putting us down by 4, so we would need a touchdown with a minute remaining. I found Amari, the clutchest dude on this team, to put us into the red zone. With 45 seconds remaining, we had plenty of time, and I tried to assure my guys not to feel like they had to rush themselves. I saw Amari coming wide open on this route, and the cornerback baited me and undercut it for an interception. And that ended the game, man. As the number 5 team in the nation, losing to a 1-5 Temple team, that is a huge heartbreaker. There's nothing you can say to these guys in the locker room right now, but I'm not sure how we're going to come back from this. After blowing a lead last game against Temple in the fourth quarter off of a couple of turnovers that were my fault, morale was definitely a little bit lower since we dropped from the number 5 ranked team in the nation down to number 19. I still didn't know how to respond to the UW scout at the Rutgers game from 2 weeks ago. I was still mulling over the idea of leaving Louisville after this year to go back to UW, but after the loss to Temple, I felt like we could do better. Even if we had just the one loss, and even if we finished within the top 5 or higher, when it was all said and done this season, I know we could have done better, and that's going to eat me up. So the decision to leave to go to UW isn't just black and white, you know? Like, there is emotion to it, and a lot of people would say you shouldn't let emotions affect your decision making, but relationships are important in football, and they gotta be considered. Anyways, after that loss to Temple, our next game came against Houston, and we were down 7-0 to start the second quarter, but Jawar Jordan had an insane 30-yard run, breaking multiple tackles and almost taking it for a touchdown. On 3rd and 9, I tried to keep the drive alive, scrambling out to the right side. Eventually, I was brought down, and it was 4th and 2, but on 4th and 2, I tried to escape outside the pocket again, and this time I stumble, and I end up getting sacked, and we turn the ball ball over on downs. Now, if you've been enjoying the series, almost 90% of you are not subscribed. Make sure to fix that problem and make sure you get my videos popping up in the future. I have some exciting news coming in the next few weeks, but I can't talk about it quite yet. Anyways, we're going to get back to the game, and at this point, we're driving down the field, and finally, I find Rich Crawford for our first touchdown of the game to tie it 7-7, but Houston does answer with a field goal of their own, so we are still down by 3 points when I find Des Melton on a corner route, and he went down near the 50-yard line. It was nice to actually get an explosive play for once. I felt like I had been really over-reliant on my legs the last couple of weeks. I ended up injuring my shoulder on this run, but I stayed in the game. Jawar ran a power O to the right and juked out 2 defenders to get a TD. But my interception problems hadn't disappeared after the Temple game, as I threw another pick at the beginning of the fourth quarter. And if you're squeamish, look away now. I threw another interception on the very next drive, and I ended up getting benched for the rest of the game. We did leave with the win, but I would miss the next game with my shoulder injury. Luckily, we won that game to keep us at 1-2, and our next game was against Charlotte. Sometimes you have to assert your dominance over other teams, and running outside the pocket and spinning around a few defenders definitely set the tone in this game. At 7-1, we had a great chance to win the American Conference and potentially have a few All-Americans on offense and defense. We're getting to that point in the season 2 where we were getting close to losing our seniors again, and it's nice to appreciate them before they leave. Des Melton is done after this year, and he may make it into the NFL. If not on a 53-man roster, he may be on a practice squad. Amari Huggins-Bruce will absolutely be getting drafted, probably in the first few rounds, and some pieces of the O-line might get drafted to play in the NFL or in the XFL. We also have a couple great D linemen who will be gone after this year. The defense is looking like it's going to be really young next season. Of course, I will need to step up even more as the leader for this team. I'll be honest, I never even thought that I would get to this point after my freshman year at Buffalo, just flaming out. I thought I would be done. Now that I have the chance to make history at Louisville and potentially get drafted, I'm more motivated though than ever. Again, I don't want to use my legs as a crutch to not pass the football, but we've been running a lot of triple option plays and they've been really successful lately. And you can see why we've been running a lot of option plays and running the football a lot. I'm going to blame that one on the shoulder injury from last game, but I did make up for it by making a couple of pinpoint throws, getting us into the red zone, and then finishing the drive off by running it in for a touchdown. I also need to make sure that I can get Chris Bell to stay for another year. He's one of the unsung heroes on this team at wide receiver. Amari gets all the glory as a speed wideout, and Chris Bell is more like prime Alshon Jeffrey, just a big body with decent route running and really good hands. He's not too flashy. And hopefully getting him the ball more will convince him to stay another year, because he definitely could go pro with his measurables and his stats this season. Maurice Turner couldn't get into the end zone, but Jawar Jordan puts the final nail in the coffin of this game, getting another touchdown and giving us a 31-7 lead. Although Charlotte did score another touchdown to keep it respectable, but I broke off a run to get near midfield. I think Coach and I learned to not be as conservative from the Temple game in the fourth quarter, especially when there's still 3 minutes left. On 3rd and 12, I found Amari Huggins-Bruce to pick up a huge first down, putting us basically into the red zone, and Maurice Turner broke off a nice run, getting us another 11 yards. Already in field goal range, even 3 points would end the game, but we continued to be aggressive. I really focused on trying to not turn the ball over when we had this much of an advantage at this point. And on 3rd and 4, I couldn't find anyone open, so I ran out of bounds, but we did pick up the field goal to make it 34-15. Charlotte did not end up scoring, and we just ran the clock out for the rest of the game. With this win, we're likely going to be in the top 10 next week, and we're going to be 8-1 along the way. I look forward to our next game. After winning our last few games, we moved back up to the 10th ranked team in the nation, and who knows, if a couple of things bounce our way, we could be back in the hunt to make the college football playoffs. We've got 2 games left since the American Conference doesn't have a conference championship. After Memphis, our last game is against SMU. Both of these teams are hovering around 500, and they're the last 2 teams in the way of a Louisville team record. I found Amari on our first drive for a 45-yard touchdown, which set the tone early on offense. But it was immediately canceled out by probably my worst play of the season, as I tried to lateral the ball on a read option to Jawar Jordan, and it was intercepted and brought all the way back for a Memphis touchdown. I did make up for it really quickly though, as we got back on Memphis' side of the field, and I found Chris Bell on a slant for a 30-yard pass, and he was almost able to get into the end zone but got knocked out right at the 1-yard line. Later on 2nd and goal, we found Rich Crawford on a short curl route in the end zone for a touchdown, giving us a 13-7 lead as we missed the PAT. Memphis wasn't able to answer, and I found Amari Huggins-Bruce near the 50-yard line right before the end of the first quarter, and early in the second quarter, I almost got into the end zone, but I was brought down by a defensive end, and we settled for a field goal. Midway through the third, I loved Coach's play calls. He did a really good job of keeping the defense off balance with some options and some play action rollouts. Memphis was holding up despite the great play calls, and then on 2nd and 8, I was trying to buy some time scrambling, and I ended up taking a hit as it was going out of bounds that aggravated my shoulder injury, and I needed help getting back up. I was angry with myself for putting myself in a position to take a dumb hit like that in the first place this late in the season, and I had to sit on the bench until I was cleared to return with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You can see that I definitely definitely learned my lesson, sliding after picking up the first down, and then later in the drive, it's 3rd and 11, and we run a halfback screen, which was incredibly conservative, which gets blown up, and Memphis takes the lead 20-19, and we run another halfback screen on 1st and 10. This time I use it for myself to get near the 50 with only 30 seconds left. And then who do we trust most when the game is on the line? With 17 seconds left, we find Amari Huggins-Bruce underneath on a drag route to pick up the first down, and then later on 2nd and 10, we find Amari Huggins-Bruce on a corner route to get in the end zone and give us a 5-point lead, and we go for 2, and we hit Amari Huggins-Bruce once more to give us that 7-point lead, and it turned out not to be necessary as Memphis wasn't able to score, and we walk out with a huge comeback W after I come back from the shoulder injury. And our last game of the season is now against SMU, and it is the deciding game to determine whether or not we're going to make the college football playoffs. We're wearing our black and red unis for our night game at home against SMU, and we moved up to number 8 in the standings at this point. On our first drive, though, I have a catastrophic fumble to start the game, and it almost goes out of bounds, but SMU does end up recovering the ball, and they end up getting a field goal out of it. Between all the rivalry games in the final week of the season and conference championships the following week, there's definitely a shot that we can move up to the top 4, especially with only 1 loss. After another conservative 3rd and 10 halfback screen that failed, we fall down 10-0, and now it's time to really lock in even more. Preston Stone, the quarterback for SMU, is looking really good early against our defense, and so this drive at the end of the first is critical. The linebacker's been on the play action fake to Jawar, and I found Chris Bell wide open over the middle for a 20-yard gain to put us on their side of the field finally. The drive is starting to fall apart a little bit, so I run a read option keeper and almost pick up the first down, but on 4th down, I keep the drive alive with my legs, picking up another first down. But we do get into another 3rd and long situation, making it 3rd and 15, and I do find Chris Bell once again for another huge first down pickup. I'm not going to let this drive end without a touchdown as I find Des Melton for our first touchdown of the game, but SMU answers themselves to give them a 10-point lead again, but we aren't running the clock out before half as I find Rich Crawford for a nice 20-yard pickup, getting us on SMU's side of the field. We found out Amari Huggins-Bruce for another first down, and then unfortunately on 1st and 10 we take a big sack, pause. SMU's D is putting a lot of pressure on me, pause, and I almost take another sack, but I break free and try to make a play down the field, but I don't see anyone, and I end up taking another hit on the sideline, resulting in another fumble that does end up being a turnover with a minute left. Preston Stone ends up making us pay, scoring another touchdown for SMU, but on a last-second Hail Mary, we get in position for a field goal to make it a 2-score game right before the end of the first half. We ended up with the ball to start the second half, and Jawar breaks off a 23-yard run, almost taking it to the house. Despite the great start, we run an option on 3rd and 3 and get stuffed, and we end up missing the field goal, which absolutely killed our momentum. Our defense came up with a huge stop, getting us the ball back, but then we get into another 3rd and 8. I take a sack, and SMU finally scores a touchdown, taking a 31-10 lead. I do find Amari Huggins-Bruce to get us back over across the 50-yard line, and then I find him again to get us into the red zone. This crowd is stunned at this point, though, and they're completely silent. I escape outside the pocket and use my legs to get us into the end zone, making it a 2-score game again. At this point, with 3 minutes left, we're getting as gritty as we can, fighting for our bowl game and potential college football playoff opportunity. I escaped outside and found Rich Crawford to get us past the 50-yard line, and then I found Des Melton to get us into the red zone again. With 2 minutes remaining, I tried to find our backup tight end Sherman on a short out route, but it got knocked away, and so on 3rd and 6, I escaped outside the pocket and picked up the first down, but I couldn't get into the end zone. Still fighting for our playoff lives, it is do or die at this point. On 4th and goal, we run a play action on the outside. I find Rich Crawford, who holds onto the ball for a touchdown to make it a 7-point game. With a minute remaining, we run an onside kick that gets immediately recovered by SMU, but we still have the opportunity with timeouts to potentially stop them. Our defense light up on 3rd and 6 to stop the run, and Preston Stone dropped a bomb, getting him down to the 1-yard line, and then SMU ended up scoring another touchdown to give them a 2-possession lead. With 30 seconds remaining, I found Sherman, who nearly got into the end zone, and we hustled up to the line of scrimmage to quickly snap the ball, and with 17 seconds remaining, I found Chris Bell on a slant to get us within 1 score again. We tried our luck with another onside kick, and this time it bounced off of an SMU player, but unfortunately it landed out of bounds. And the team was shocked, the fans were shocked, and SMU came up with a huge upset victory over our team, and Preston Stone walked away with a career performance, 290 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, and 0 picks. Not to be outdone, I also had a great game myself with 340 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 picks, but it would not be enough. That one fumble at the beginning of the game kind of killed us. And so our dreams of making the college football playoffs are definitely over, but now we just have to see who we're going to play in our bowl game. At the end of my junior season, it was announced that we'd be playing Auburn in our upcoming bowl game. This was an upgrade over our game against North Texas last year. No disrespect to them, but I was happy we got the opportunity to get some reps versus an SEC team. The game didn't exactly start how we had planned though. Their D was getting crazy penetration and I got strip sacked and Auburn recovered it at our 30-yard line. Luckily they didn't score. What was even crazier though was that their DBs were even better. They were clamping Chris Bell and Amari to begin the game on the outside. This forced us to run the ball even more and use screen passes, and we had a lot to figure out offensively, but after getting to Auburn's side of the field, Maurice Turner, our backup running back, ended up stumbling and getting laid out, and he fumbled the ball, and Auburn recovered it again. Going back to the idea of transferring after my junior year, I'd finally made up my mind. The UW scout had reached out to me to enter the transfer portal after our bowl game, and he even told me I should skip out on the bowl to make sure that I was healthy for spring training. I told my coach about the interaction, and he said that he wasn't going to force me to stay, but that we had unfinished business, and if I stayed, he would give me full control over the offense my senior year, allowing me to have input on plays, and even allowing me to call audibles when I wanted to. I also talked to my two starting wide receivers next year, Chris Bell and Rich Crawford, about what they thought, and I asked them if they would go with me to UW, and they said that they would, but I also had another option. An agent reached out to me about going to the draft after my junior year, and he told me that he was getting a 4th-round guarantee, but not a guarantee at quarterback. I decided to listen to Marshawn Ford, my former tight end, who mentioned earlier in the season not to enter the draft, and I was going to play my senior college season. And so I finally made my decision. I was going to return to Louisville. Like Coach said, we had unfinished business. I also respected them for always trusting in me, whereas UW pulled their offer my senior year of high school and only had interest in me after seeing my success my junior year. Louisville also gave me some opportunities to make some NIL money, along with the potential to get my number retired. My parents fully supported my decision, and I had sort of established a life in Louisville with my home and my dog, Buddy. Now, did I make the right decision? Let me know in the comments. Somehow we had managed to score 10 points, and we had one last drive before the end of the first half. Surprisingly, our one touchdown came from Maurice Turner, our backup running back, who had that fumble earlier in the game. With 15 seconds left, I was only looking to one dude on a go route, and it was Amari Huggins-Bruce who burned his matchup, and we used our last timeout. And then with 4 seconds remaining, we ran one more play, and I had Amari Huggins-Bruce wide open in the back of the end zone, and I didn't pull the trigger, instead taking a sack. And yeah, it was a huge buzzkill, scoring no points when we were on their 5-yard line, but I just rallied the team at halftime and told them we just had to stay the course. Auburn was clearly 6-6 just because of their defense. I trusted our defense to continue to lock down their offense too. We just had to keep doing the little things right, and if we got rid of the turnovers that we had in the first half, we would definitely win this game, and so that's what we did. Normally, I might be upset with how often Coach was calling screen passes, but I definitely understood it in this situation. With 4.5 minutes remaining in the game, pay close attention to how we were running the ball. We're doing a lot of quarterback scrambles and rollouts, and a lot of read options and just straight up halfback runs to burn as much clock as possible. And I've mentioned this before, but winning a bowl game would be huge for the recruiting cycle. It continues to get us great players on the roster, and even though it's not going to matter much my senior season, what freshmen look like, is going to help the program long term. And I feel like the fact that I didn't enter the transfer portal is indicative of the loyalty I have towards Louisville. Anyways, on 3rd and 15, we get right down to the 1-yard line off of a pass to Sherman, and we end up taking the field goal, but Auburn comes back and finally scores their first touchdown of the game. But with 1.5 minutes remaining, all we need to do is get one more first down, and so we're running Gerard Jordan significantly, and Coach went back to the read option again, isolating the edge defender, and I kept it for myself, picking up the first down, and we would end up beating Auburn 13-10. A very low-scoring game, but it was great to pick up our second bowl win with me on the team, and the first time that I actually get to start for the last possession of the game versus being injured, like in our game versus North Texas. But this is huge for the program nonetheless, and I'm excited to see what my senior year has in store. Keep watching, though, because now we're going to go through the season stats for our offense and defense, and then after that, we're going to look at how our former teammates are doing in the NFL. All right, so starting out with my stats, I ended up winning the Walter Camp Award, finishing with 22 touchdown passes and 14 interceptions and nearly 3,000 passing yards, and then 1,600 rushing yards, averaging almost 9 yards per carry and 16 rushing touchdowns. And Gerard Jordan had a great season rushing the ball as well, with nearly 200 carries, almost 900 rushing yards, and then 5 rushing touchdowns. And Maurice Turner didn't get that much of an opportunity, but as a wide receiver, Amari Huggins-Bruce, 53 catches for 860 yards and 7 touchdowns. He was the #1 option. Rich Crawford, as a freshman, putting up great numbers. And then Chris Bell had a really solid season too, but not as many touchdowns as I had expected from him. And Des Melton did an okay job, getting 23 catches in total for nearly 400 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Defensively, we have 2 junior star coverage linebackers in Cameron Wilson and TJ Quinn, both making All-Americans. And Cameron Wilson actually won the Bednarik and the Butkus Award this year, and he had 2 sacks along with 4 interceptions. When the draft came around, it was no surprise that Amari Huggins-Bruce was the first Louisville player off the board, getting picked in the 2nd round, and then Des Melton got picked in the 4th round, and then Tamarcus Simpson, a linebacker safety hybrid out of USF who frequently gave me issues, ended up getting drafted in the 1st round. Amari Huggins-Bruce comes out of the draft as an 81 overall, and then Des Melton comes out as a 71 overall. Jawhar Jordan also ended up getting drafted to the Buccaneers, and D. Wiggins and LJ Henderson are now both on the Cardinals. And then lastly, Marshawn Ford finished his first season for the Cowboys.